this week's broadcast, we talk to Who's the More about the opening of the Ceneri base terminal. We'll also look back at the RailFreight Summit in Poland earlier this week to receive some intensively discussed topics. This is RailFreight Live.
Hello everyone, this is Marjorie van Leijen.
This is Jialu. It's been a very busy but fruitful week for the railway industry in China. Earlier this week, a new provincial platform company in Jiangsu was established to offer new services along the New Silk Road. By merging 4 existing rail companies in the same province, Jiangsu International Rail Freight Express received quite some attention, especially in the Netherlands. A quarter of the trading volume between China and the Netherlands was from Jiangsu province, which set up the ground volume for the rail connection and business opportunities. A MOU between Jiangsu and GVT has been signed for co-developing railway connections. We'll keep following on the development of this new route. Furthermore, Xi'an International Port has announced a new connection towards Vilnius in Lithuania, which will have the first departure on 19 September. The total transit will only take 8 days, and the route will not pass the currently heavily congested border crossing Malaswich. In next week's RailFreight Live, we'll have a close discussion about these new services. Back into our topic in Europe. Today, the opening of the Ceneri base terminal takes place, a historical milestone in Swiss engineering and the European north-south transport route. The Ceneri base terminal marks the completion of the new rail link through the Alps, which forms the core of Europe's main north-south freight route, extending from Rotterdam to Genoa.
Switzerland lies at the heart of Europe. The beauty of its Alps is renowned. But the Alps are also a bottleneck for traffic. In approving the new railway link through the Alps, in short NRLA, the people of Switzerland decided to build a state-of-the-art rail link through the Alps. They wanted to make it possible for goods to be transported across the Alps by train instead of by lorry. Thanks to the 3 base tunnels at the Lötschberg, Gotthard and Ceneri, the journey time through the Alps is shorter, and the rail link is flatter and can handle more traffic. Upgrades to feeder routes and noise abatement measures have increased the capacity and acceptance of the new flatbed railway. Thanks to the NRLA, Switzerland is already able to prevent around 800,000 lorry journeys a year. 2/3 of goods are transported through the Swiss Alps by rail. Switzerland did not build the NRLA simply for its own benefit. The NRLA forms the centerpiece of the most important European freight corridor, connecting economic hubs in the Netherlands, Belgium and Germany with those in Italy. No other rail corridor in Europe transports as much freight. The volume of freight is predicted to continue to grow significantly. The NRLA allows goods to be transported more quickly and more cheaply. Journey times will also be shorter for rail passengers. The completion of the Ceneri tunnel also marks the completion of the centerpiece of the European rail corridor, on time and at the highest quality. Now rail operators and haulage firms can make full use of the NRLA. The Ceneri therefore marks both the end and the beginning. Let's make the most of the NRLA for customers, for the public, for the environment, for the future.
Yes, and in the studio we have Guus de Mol, and he is the president of the management board of the Rhine-Alpine corridor. Guus, welcome.
Hello, Mary.
And yes, we heard in the video that this is good for our future, but what is this future?
Well, this future at least makes it possible to run longer trains with a more heavy load through, let's say, north-south, because at this moment or till December, when the Ceneri tunnel is fully in operation, trains have to climb high hills. It's the same as with your car. If you climb a hill, you're limited in speed and in the tonnage you can take. And this will be taken out. So it makes it cheaper, easier, and faster to cross Switzerland.
Yeah. And there was also a number mentioned in the video. It said 100% growth. Now, it didn't say when and where, but 100% looks like quite a lot. Is that something realistic?
From the Swiss point of view, it's very realistic because they have a strict policy in making it for trucks not attractive to cross the country. So there's a part of this growth which will be done by trains which come from Germany running to Italy, but also a part will be done by trains which just cross Switzerland with trailers on trains.
Yes, so it's not just the tunnel that is going to constitute this growth.
No, the Swiss upgraded from Basel to the Italian borders.
Yeah.
And it's even good to know that the Italians also the Swiss paid a lot to the Italian government to upgrade the rail lines south of Switzerland.
Okay. And which other measures are in place that are all related to encourage the shift to rail?
Well, there is a slow, and I think in the eyes of shippers and railway undertakings, too slow development that the line is upgraded from Rotterdam to Milano area. We as Dutch people can be quite proud because the Betuwe route already opened over 10 years ago. That's a masterpiece of this. The Swiss are now finishing, although they will still work on the Lotsberg tunnel to also make capacity higher there the upcoming years. But at this moment, the big waiting is on the missing links in Germany. And the Germans face a lot of, problems to get things ready. The willingness is there. You see it on the construction of the third track. They are working on it, but they find a lot of problems in process. Let's say the process to get the permits. And that's for the third track, as we Dutch people know, but it's the same as in the south, between Mannheim and Basel. There are also problems. So this is also why the Swiss government now switches to put pressure on the French government to make also the route on the other side of the Rhine available to run easily to Switzerland and Italy.
Yeah, what kind of problems are they facing between Mannheim and Basel?
Well, it's a double track, so okay. One line up, one line down, and it will be upgraded to 4 tracks.
Okay. So when you look at this, it's all like kind of pieces to a puzzle, and yet they call this the missing link, and now there should be a seamless connection. But then if I hear you like that, that's not entirely true.
In Switzerland is seamless.
Okay.
And we have to adjust the outside world. Only what I have seen in international cooperation, looking at your neighbors and waiting till they are finished, then you start, then it will never end. So it will always be a jigsaw where somebody is ready earlier than the other. And we must find ways that we make the alignment so good as possible. Yes, and this is why the Swiss are now looking, can we use France a bit more while we wait for the Germans to finish?
And how can you explain that a country like Switzerland is doing so much more in terms of work and time and money than other countries on the Rhine-Alpine corridor?
Well, the Swiss have the Alps and they have to transport, and it was for them a decision, are we constructing huge motorways crossing the Alps? Or are we making another transport policy and we put those trucks on the train? And they have a very strong democratic system with people voting for almost everything. And the people decided that they prefer trains above trucks. And then they start constructing these Trans-Alp routes for trains. But they also put in place a law that it's hard to run trucks through Switzerland because the tonnage is much lowered for transit trucks.
And is this a policy that could simply be copied in other countries, or is it very typical of the region?
I think it is what you want to achieve. Of course, it's a political decision, but what makes it very nice in Switzerland that the people had a choice between, do you want more trucks, that we start building roads, or do you want that we build tunnels and viaducts for trains? And they voted for trains, but then also, let's say, public resistance was much lower because they made a choice up front. They had a choice.
Yeah. You are the director of the management board of the Rhine-Alpine Corridor, and the Rhine-Alpine Corridor is one of the corridors of the TEN-T network, and actually the most heavily used corridor. And the whole point of the corridor is to streamline these efforts a little bit more. So what can the corridor do to make sure that all these puzzle pieces come together?
First, indeed, what we do as corridor is constantly make pictures of developments and look at missing links, looks at things which is, let's say, missed in a country. I can give a lot of examples, but a funny example was at a certain moment that it was foreseen that the Germans will roll out ERTMS to Venlo in 2027, and it was not even in a Dutch plan. And then you can start, let's say, pinpointing that it's not fitting together. And that also changed in the Dutch government, that they changed their ERTMS program, that now also Venlo is pulled much further to today's situation. And now it will be a split of 1 or 2 years, which is, if you look at a long period, almost at the same moment.
Yeah. But do you as a corridor have this influence to pressure governments to speed up?
Formally, we have to discuss with ministries. In the total construction of rail freight corridors, also ministries have an executive board, and we bring the reports to them, and they are forced to react. And it's the same that we have TEN-T coordinators, and we discuss with them also these missing links, and they also have entrances to ministers. So it's a kind of lobby, but first you have to make the picture.
Yeah. And right now that picture is the Swiss celebrating and the others maybe also celebrating. Do you think it looks like people can actually benefit from what the Swiss government has done, or is it not considered that way?
I think the Swiss people can benefit from this at the moment.
Okay.
And on the longer term, we all can benefit if there are more trains can run. But very honestly, at this moment, there is a lack of capacity in Germany. It's quite full there. And they are trying to do their utmost best to also run at the existing lines more trains.
Yeah. What is the next big milestone to be reached?
The next big milestone is the Northern Italy upgrade, that there also can trains run with 740 meter, and that they improve the electricity system, so that also trains can be heavier.
Okay.
That's the next, and that is foreseen in the upcoming 2-3 years.
And that is to Milan, or?
Yeah, that is the terminals around Milan, because we always use the word Milan, but talk with with the customers, and the terminals are not in Milan, but they are in a big area around Milan.
Yeah. And are there any more tunnels planned, or was this really the last tunnel?
No, as I said, the Lotsberg tunnel is now partly a single track, and they are making plans to also upgrade this to a fully double track tunnel.
Yeah. Okay. And the Rastad tunnel, everybody knows the Rastad tunnel by now. What's happening there? Is that still moving on?
Yeah, that is exactly, this is in the part which I just mentioned, where they are upgrading from 2 tracks to 4 tracks. And because it's also in heavily dense area, they also use a lot of tunnels, and they are drilled underground. And this work will continue, but they expect that it will take maximum up to 20 years from now to finish the complete project.
20 years, okay.
But that is also what we have seen as the Dutch people with the 3rd track construction. You also want that the trains keep on running.
Yeah. Okay, well, I would like to thank you for sharing your expertise, and have a good day.
It was a pleasure to be with you, and good luck with the rest of the program.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
So, Marjorie, earlier this week that you were in Poznan to host our RailFreight Summit in Poland. It's already the third edition, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. And we have been in Wrocław, that was the first edition, and for the second in Gdansk. And this year we decided to move to Poznan, which is also a very important center in Poland for RailFreight.
And is there anything special about this year's edition because of COVID-19?
Yes, it was a special edition. At first it was, we were hesitating if we can do it at all, but then it looked good. We had the green light. But we also noticed that there were still a lot of people who couldn't travel or couldn't make it. So we had a hybrid form, as we called it. There were people who could watch the live stream. We had a mobile studio there, which was all very spectacular. And there was also some speakers who couldn't make it. So we had those speakers recorded and live available for questions. So it was something a little bit different, but there was an audience, which was also nice. Everybody was happy to finally go out again, and that made it a kind of very positive atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. What's the most special part of this year's program, in your opinion, and what's the program look like?
Well, we can have a look at the after movie. There you can see a little bit of a recap.
I hope there has been a mental shift, that already some foundations were laid. There are a lot of challenges, but I'm happy that we had so many positive stories also about what's going well, and I think we should focus a bit more on that, and then this shift to rail will definitely happen.
I really liked the audience because the audience was very involved in setting up a hub actually, and everybody came up with very inspiring ideas.
The main bottlenecks is that the freight trains cannot run on the big tracks. The other is the capacity, and we gave now during the presentation a solution how you can have much more capacity in involving the two other border stations, which are only 7 kilometers away.
Think about how can we close the gap with the consumer. I do see for RailFreight a big and bright future. But we have to get the message across.
And that's the end of it. 2 days filled with interesting discussions, people happy that we could meet each other again, and a very solid base to be back here next year, somewhere in Poland, whether it will be Łódź or Warsaw. We know the conference will be a blast.
So, Marjorie, what's some topics that has been heavily discussed this year? Maybe you can highlight some parts for us.
Yeah. Well, we had of course the usual figures and statistics to see what is the current situation in Poland, and all the bottlenecks were discussed. But we also had some very practical sessions about, for example, what makes a hub, and there we asked our audience to sit in groups and to discuss what makes a hub and which places do you consider a hub. And it was funny because everybody came up with completely different answers. And then we discussed that with the audience, and there were some presentations about the ideal hub from experts, like Matrons presented their ideas. And we had a presentation about LoR technology. So that's like a special technology that makes the terminal a lot better. Technology was one important point. And then Wincont, Harold Joni from Wincont, also presented his ideas about how digitalization is very important. And this is one of the presentations that I liked because it was fresh, it was new. And his motto is basically that you do not need to invest millions in order to become smart. And that's something we have on video, so we can share it.
What we have done in the last months and years is that we looked a little bit on the business cases of hinterland terminals. And when you look in the hinterland terminals, you see that the delay is one of the biggest disadvantages that we have at these hinterland terminals. On the slide, you can see that we have a very big number of minutes of delay every week. So we have 100, 120 trains per week. So that means that every train is delayed more than 50 minutes. That's a problem, more or less. But if you say, yeah, you're an hinterland terminal, we are now a terminal which is working 24 hours. So that means delay doesn't matter so much because people are here. They're working all the day, 24 hours. So it doesn't matter if a train is coming late or not, because every train is coming late. So that's the point. If you live in a little bit of chaos, you can design also your digitalization on that. And that is what we have done in the last months. We also say that we have a superpower. And this superpower is to have more or less the chance to make these delays more and more less. Because if the train has 2 hours delay, we can make it in that way that we say, okay, we save these 2 hours for you, and then you go out on time. That is our superpower. And this superpower is very, very easy for a hinterland terminal because we have only to connect all the things that we have. We are trimodal. That means we have the street, we have the trains more or less on the railways, and we have some ships. And if you connect the trains, the railways, and the streets more or less with digitalization in a live system, then you can profit from this superpower. And that is what we have done in the last month. It was very easy. I have one slide for you where you can see what is a very simple process of an hinterland terminal. You go in, you have a little kind of check, then you have more detailed check if you're going in repairs, then you have repair, and then you go out, also with some checks. So it's a very, very easily and simple process. It's in every hinterland terminal the same process. And we said, okay, now we go into these steps of processing, and that is what I want to show you on the next slide. So if you step in the first process, it's very easy because you have an OCR terminal. It's a known technology, so that means you have some cameras on it. You identify vehicle numbers, you identify container numbers. It's very, very easy on the street. It's also happened on the railway side, so it's very easy, common technology. It doesn't cost so much. That is what we have done in the first step 3 years ago. So we installed this for the street. Very good. You became some information, you get pictures, you get line scans, you get everything you want from the trucks. If you combine this with existing technologies, and that is what we have done in the last months, is we said, okay, we don't need so much money for that. We don't need millions of euros to put in the new technologies. We use the common technologies, like smart glasses, like everything you can imagine, like tablets or something which is very, very easy and very, very cheap in the end. And that's what we have done. We have set it up a project. It's named 10K. 10K means every department manager of our company get some invitation to make some projects with 10,000 euros. That is 10K. You don't have to use more than 10,000 euros to speed up the processes, to make it more and more efficient for all the people. And that's what we have done, and it works very good. So that means some of the guys invested in tablets. So that means you get everything digital, no papers anymore. The second guy invested in Wi-Fi connection because he said, okay, I need a Wi-Fi connection. And if you put all these 10K projects together, we have 5 of them. So that means 50,000 euros, very, very cheap investment. And in the end of the day, we get for this process and more or less live system. So that means a rich taker is connected with the truck and with the people on the ground, is connected with all these detail checkers that we have. And in the end, that means we started 3 years ago with papers. So everybody got papers. Everybody got numbers, whatever he want. Now we have everything, after Corona also, we have everything on tablets. So that means we have no papers anymore.
With that, we have come to an end of this week's RailFreight Live. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our website for the latest news in the international railway industry. We look forward to see you next week. Bye.